Well, first I'll ask, are there any announcements that anybody has?
I did want to mention just the passing of Kirby Edmonds, the vice chair for the Human Rights Commission and a longtime human rights and social activist in our community. He died on Saturday, and arrangements in terms of a memorial service are yet pending at this point. I haven't heard anything as of yet from his family and such, but he's someone who we certainly will miss. The Human Rights Commission has decided to just take this moment to just mourn and his passing and reflect on his legacy, and will later release a statement reflective of their appreciation, of our appreciation for Kirby and his work for the commission and the ethical community over these many years. And so we will be gathering together on Friday, just an informal sort of get together by Zoom. And just wanted to mention and acknowledge that because of the work that Kirby did for many years to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Henry, go ahead.
We do a moment of silence for Kirby's passing.
Yes, let's have a moment of silence.
Okay, thank you all.
I also wanted to bring up some of two Black men who were shot this week by police. On Friday, Trayford Pellerin, a Black man, was shot 11 times, shot and killed 11 times by Lafayette police in Louisiana. And as the next person who was killed, it was Jacob Blake, who was, and that one has been in the news a lot, so people have probably heard about that. So that was on Sunday afternoon. Jacob was, by reports, he was unarmed, and he was shot in the back 7 or 8 times while trying to enter his van, where 3 of his young children, aged 8, 5, and 3 were. And according to his family, he was a devoted father, a son, a brother, a cousin, and an uncle. If he does survive, the reports are that he probably will be paralyzed from the waist down. So I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything about those and and ask how everybody's doing with that and with Kirby's passing. Leslyn?
Thanks, Annie. I raised my hand because I just wondered if the Dr. Clark or the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee would like to pull together a proclamation honoring Kirby that could be read at our legislature meeting next Tuesday. This is really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate, Dr. Clark, are you saying yes?
Yes.
So if you would be so kind and shoot me what you have.
Okay.
And to Kathy as well, and we will we'll do that.
Okay, we'll do.
Dr. Clark, would you like some help with that, putting it in the resolution format like we did before?
Yes, we can brainstorm about that maybe tomorrow and then kind of move forward?
Okay, I'd be willing to help you.
Okay, great. I will send you an email and see what times we're both available.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep me in the email.
Oh, and we'll keep you CC'd.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Leslin, for bringing that up, and Dr. Clark for offering to help. Okay. We'll go on to our minutes approval from July 22nd. Did anybody have any questions on that or any corrections?
I would move them.
All right, Lisa moves them, Henry seconds them. And so we're going to do a roll call vote. Leslin,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Henry, Rachel,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Dr. Clark.
Yes.
Okay, so that's approved. And I vote yes, so that's approved unanimously. And so next on our agenda is an update from the Jedi team. And who would like to take this, to start this?
So I can start. We had 35, I think. I think there's 35 participants. 33 actually made it to the meeting.
Wow.
They are representing 19 departments. And we started the meeting with a presentation from Belisa Gonzalez. And she did a presentation on implicit bias and some, she went over some definitions and important words. And from there, we went into working agreements to talk about what everybody in the team needs to be a productive member of the team. And we set a pretty good list of working agreements for our group. And then we discussed some next steps and some challenges that we have with a couple of members that don't have computers. So we're looking into how to make sure that they're included on all correspondence and that they can be present for our meetings. And we compiled a list for everyone. I think you should have all received it, of one of the statements from each person on the team of what is one action you believe will be key to achieve our vision for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So those statements are out, and I think that's it for my part.
Okay. I can talk about the next steps in terms of the immediate future for Team Jedi. A small team will be developing an agenda for the September meeting. And we're going to be looking to also exploring, I should say, how to balance group trainings and action planning, and also developing an action plan for both employees and also services. And services, when we're speaking with regard to, so the our external, if you will, customers or public that we serve, that the county serves. And so these three items really constitute, what we will do en route to our next gathering. I thought the the interest and participation was really impressive. One, in terms of the responses from people to join the team, and secondly, the engagement and the interaction that took place, and those that showed up for our meeting last Wednesday. So I think it was a very good way to begin this process. And then we anticipate Deanna Carruthers to join us at the next meeting in September. Any questions, comments?
Henry?
Yeah, Rachel, what are the working agreements that you talked about?
We have honesty, a place where people can stumble, room for failure and growth, a place to regain our footing, empathy and compassion, more spaces for communication outside of formal meetings, challenge ourselves to utilize active listening, flexibility and understanding with time limitations and meeting styles, resolve to act, patience, commitment, persistence, commit to being present, changing culture, no more status quo, transparency, precision. And then there was one, I sent an email out to the group with some examples that other organizations doing similar work use, and someone mentioned that they really liked those and they didn't want us to not have those included. So those are, I don't have those in front of me right now though, but everyone on the team has copies of those.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Leslin?
So I have two questions. So what you just mentioned, Rachel, that you started out saying working agreement. So people were just sort of listing the things that are important to them for continuing the group?
Right.
Okay. And then my other question is there, you're just getting started, so maybe there isn't, but is there a framework of what it is you all are going to be working on as an employee group, as a JEDI team? Do you have some general topic areas or action areas that you'll be working on?
So Leslin, if I may, I can jump in here. What the group did at this first meeting was just kind of the foundational work. So they do not have large topic areas at this point, but what I think was provided to all of you is where they envisioned going. And what the group started to do at the end was to talk about what areas they want to work on, both internally with the culture of the organization and how we interact as employees and engage employees. And then how do we also start to look at our services that we provide with the justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion lens. And so that's the very broad answer to that. They'll be diving much deeper. And when we do bring on the Chief Equity Diversity Officer, I know that the team that kind of thought of this want to dive more into these core equity plans and what that looks like for all of us. So the framework is very loose at this point, with some things set in place to support that Chief Equity Diversity Officer in their work.
Okay. I imagine that that's where you are at this point, but I also want to keep in mind, perhaps as our line of sight, the results of the climate survey.
Yes.
Informing some of this as well, so that whatever it is we're doing aligns with, those recommendations and the things that come out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all in there. So thank you for that.
One big melting pot. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on that? I wanted to say I was glad to hear that you had 35 people apply to be on the Jedi committee, and that you got 33 of the 35 to be in one meeting. So that's great. I know that Amy mentioned to me and Rachel mentioned today as far as the difficulty with folks being able to get onto a computer, not having a job where you have a computer in front of you. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about now a little bit further, or we can add it to the agenda for next month, or what do you guys, Amy, did you have anything else on that?
I could just share briefly. I don't know that it's a large agenda item at this point. I think what has risen up is that, with a team that has equity in the title, and we learned very quickly that having the same supplies is an important piece of this. And so we are going to continue to make accommodations for the different members of the Jedi team so that they can all participate. One of those accommodations will be looking at providing the equipment that others have in some capacity, as well as training and tools. We also, as part of the Jedi meetings, while we will have the Zoom capability and we'll use Zoom, we'll also have a physically distanced meeting space that people could come to if they don't have a quiet office space that they can use during that time, or a location that is okay with Zoom. The reason for the interest in going ahead and purchasing technology is that the employees, immediately following the Jedi meeting, there was conversations via email that started to just naturally occur about, oh, this was a really good point. Have you read this book? Let's look at this. Let's not forget about this. And so while I can go ahead and send to those that don't have access to the email system, I can give them the paper printouts. They won't be able to fully engage in that conversation without that technology piece. And so we'll continue to work on that and see what those tools are. I think the big piece for this, though, is it also brings that awareness of how large our organization is and how diverse our organization is, and how we make sure that everyone has access to the different resources as our employees. So I will be working on finding that technology and looking at different budget areas, perhaps even within the WDIC budget. We've used those funds in the past to help with that, to ensure that we can provide that technology to those employees and make other accommodations as necessary.
Right, because they'll need a place to store their computer, place to be able to use it, charge it. So thank you very much for seeing that and jumping right on that, Amy. Okay, so we're gonna transition, and well, I see Nancy Martinson on here. So should we do a round? Are you with the Jedi team or would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy Martinson. I am with the Ithaca Asian American Association.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you for having me and letting me join this.
Well, welcome. I like your background that you have when your screen is off there.
Thank you.
Was there something specific you wanted to talk about today, or you just wanted to sit in on the meeting?
Nope, just sitting in on the meeting.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so the next, not sure if Amy or Lisa would like to do an update on the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer position, which we kind of touched on a little bit.
I can speak to it, and Amy, feel free to jump in, but really just thrilled to say that we had a very thorough search process, a strong applicant pool, and so pleased that Deanna Carithers is going to be joining us as the county's first Chief Equity Diversity Officer. I think everyone probably saw the press release that went out, or we did a communication to staff, department heads, the legislature. There was just an article that came out today in the Ithaca Voice about it, but it will be, I think, great for everyone to get to know Deanna. She has a public administration background. She comes to us from Wichita, Kansas. She's worked for a long time at Wichita State University as their director of operations and the liaison to the president's diversity council. She again has a master's in public administration. She's working on a PhD, and her background in diversity, equity, and inclusion is very strong and again very thorough, and her enthusiasm is contagious. So her enthusiasm for the work is very contagious. And she's going to be starting remotely with us on September 8th as she makes plans to move to the community shortly thereafter in the next month or two. So I know that many folks have extended warm welcomes to her and provided offers of support in helping her to navigate the community and search for housing and so on and so forth. So that's very welcome. And I think she feels the warmth and enthusiasm coming her way to bring her on board. So thank you for that. And I know many of you were involved in the search process. If you want to say more, feel free. But.
Yeah, one of the things that was impressive to me about Deanna is the fact that she has experience in the nonprofit sector, in government, and in higher education. And those three entities are those that with which the county interacts with in general, and that this position in particular will be engaging as she begins to do her work. And as Lisa said, I mean, she sort of generates this sort of excitement about the role and interest in the role as well, and is reflected a level of competence and experience and insight that was impressive, and that I think played significant factors in her becoming the successful candidate. So I'm really looking forward to working with her.
Yeah, I didn't get to participate in the hiring process, but I did look her up on LinkedIn and was thrilled to discover that she's from Kansas. And as a Missourian, it's always nice to have people from the Midwest joining our ranks. So I'm excited about that, to work with her.
I was on the search committee, and her qualifications are through the roof for this position. I think it's a really good fit. Her energy level and enthusiasm is also just through the roof. So it's hard not to like her. So it'll be really exciting to have her on board.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tompkins County, for leadership in this. There's Cornell University and what the university and colleges does, and then there's just regular old Tompkins. And surely we are leading in this arena, in this hire. I know the city is looking at it. We did climate survey, and our colleagues and other entities are looking at what we're doing as well. So it's wonderful for us to move in that direction, for sure. I had a chance to participate in the interviews, and I will say the word that stood out for me more than anything else is it seemed that somebody who, in this day and age, when you hear it frequently, that there's a level of authenticity that she brought, that in her speaking, in her presentation, and just her being through the Zoom screen, that felt wonderful and felt exactly what was needed for this type of position. So I'm excited about having her on board as well, and I'm so glad that she accepted the position. I hope nobody tells her about the cost of living, although she researches everything. So she probably did already.
She's figured that out.
Probably did already, because she researches everything. But I was like, oh Lord, coming from Wichita to Tompkins County. Oh, bless her heart. It's a little pricey, a little bit of a pricey move there, but she's excited, and I'm excited too.
What we didn't tell her about was winter.
She's in the Midwest, babe. I think she can handle this. I think she can handle this one.
We don't have very many tornadoes here, though. Henry?
Yes, Lisa, I'm glad she's going to start remotely. Have you guys figured out where she's going to sit?
We do. We have.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she has an office upstairs on the 3rd floor, and we're, I think we're in the final stages of the renovations up there. Last I checked, so we have a place for her.
Wow, that's good.
The best recruitment is retention, and all of us need to be doing everything that we can do to make sure that we retain good people, because that sends a message. And so, all the energy we can put into making sure that this candidate is onboarded well, and feels like from the get-go she belongs in Tompkins County. Let's all do it. So I'm glad to hear you say, Lisa, people have been reaching out with warm welcomes already. That's a good.
Kate, I saw your hand up briefly. No?
No, I'm excited she's from the Midwest. That was my piece.
Well, great, and I'll second what Leslyn said. In the midst of a pandemic and really difficult financial times for the county, this is really important. So this is something that we had planned over many years, and so it's great that we could still move forward, even though we are having this great difficulty. So the next is Henry brought up the topic, Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, which is September. Henry, did you want to start that?
Yes, I know that we have not done anything in the past for this group, but the Heritage Month starts in the middle of the month, so September 15th, which is our second meeting. And so I contacted the local group, and I've heard back from them, and Fernando's also in the group. He was on the interviews, and Patricia is the chair of the group. And so I've been working with them. I got contacted, so we're going to bring a resolution to the legislature to have a proclamation read on September 15th. Just wanted to announce it here, so in case anybody was wondering. I copied Dr. Clark on it, so I'll probably work with Dr. Clark too on getting a resolution done, because the official month name is Hispanic Heritage Month, but we might be loose with that and use Latinx. It's Heritage Month instead. That's a term of favor now.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I wanted to say, just sort of that we're on board. So we're going to have it, and it won't be until after our next meeting here. It'll be before that, so I just wanted to announce it here.
Okay, thank you, Henry and Dr. Clark, for working on that. And thank Patricia, please, for us. Any questions or comments on that? And so excuse my ignorance on this. I don't know if there's a certain flag. I know that people who are Latinx could be from many countries. I didn't know if there was if there was anything else that we could do.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's a particular flag. I can ask Patricia, but I don't think there's one. I don't know whether you know, Dr. Clark.
I don't think so. Usually, Latinx individuals and groups usually may identify with the flag of a particular country or nation. typically, whether it's, say, Puerto Rico or Cuba, etc. But I don't think that there's a generic sort of flag that I'm aware of.
Yeah, we can check with them to see whether they know anything.
Okay, and so Henry, are you going to invite Patricia or someone to so this will be for this coming up legislative meeting on the 1st of September?
No, this would be September 15th legislative meeting, because
Oh,
that's the day the month actually starts. This month starts mid-month, and September 15th, October 15th. And so I just planned ahead and tried to get them ahead of time.
Okay, great.
And
That's
so
right.
I assume we just do a proclamation, and then we'll have it all set at the time of the 15th meeting.
Okay, so it's going to be a proclamation, not a resolution.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, I guess either one.
Yeah, that's usually how it is a proclamation.
It is a
Yeah,
problem.
It's a proclamation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll invite them to the meeting to receive the proclamation too, and to say a few words.
And just for the record, for everyone, she pronounces her name Patricia.
Oh, right.
That's right. Thank you for the reminder. And the last on our agenda is an update on the police reform, the task force. Jason's not here. I didn't know if Amy or Lisa had any updates on that for this committee.
I can start, Lisa, and if you want to chime in. So we are continuing to come up with kind of a strategy for moving this forward, working in conjunction with the city, working along with also the Center for Policing Equity. And so what became clear is that while the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department are definitely two different entities, they are both policing entities in the community. And as we start to look at policing reform and that strategy, we need to be coordinated together. And so that's where we're at this point, is starting to have those conversations with the Center for Policing Equity to see how we can make that coordination occur on both our side as well as their side. And so we'll be continue to bring together kind of our different leadership teams to start creating a structure and move to the next steps, which will be a lot of community engagement and ensuring that the community voice is at the table, as well as the law enforcement and others. Lisa, I don't know if there's other pieces that I missed or that you want to add in.
No, I think you covered it, and I think that we have a lot of local expertise here that we're looking to engage and in meaningful ways in terms of community engagement. And so that we're hoping that the Center for Policing Equity can help with an overarching framework and so forth, but really utilizing the strengths and what we have in our community and they engage with the groups in our community. So.
I'm not sure who had their hand up first. Henry and then Leslyn?
Yes. Thank you for that report. Although, Amy, I thought that you're working with the city. Are you also working with like Trumansburg and the other police departments too?
Yes. So initially we brought together all of the different law enforcement entities to discuss how they would do it and how we would collaborate with each other. One of the challenges is every entity has to put in their own plan from their own leadership. And so there is a challenge there, but we are going to coordinate with all of them. The city had started to move a little bit, so we had kind of worked closer to them, being the two largest enforcement entities, but we will be working with the others as well. And we've been in communication with them.
I know there was some debate about whether Cornell and IC police forces were held to the same standard. Are they, and are they going to participate?
So they're not held to the executive order that was brought out by the governor, but they are also participating. So we did bring them into that initial meeting, and I know Leslyn was there as well as other community leaders from each policing agency community. We did bring them into that initial conversation. We'll continue to have the conversation. A lot of those conversations have also focused to the outside person that doesn't work in this realm. Law enforcement is law enforcement. So it's not just the jurisdictional boundaries are not as clear to them, although there are a lot of things that go into those boundaries. So we'll continue to work through that.
My final question, and who is the Police Equity Reform people?
So the Center for Policing Equity is a national nonprofit that I am not exactly sure how the mayor connected with them, but they have done a lot of this work in this community convening throughout the country. And so they're working with us on this. One of the questions that has come up, I think it came up at Public Safety, what is the cost behind this? There is not a cost associated. They use this kind of as a convening piece and moving kind of their nonprofit work ahead.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Leslyn? Leslyn?
Yeah, thank you. That mute button doesn't work as quickly when you're pressing it. So they're talking about police just brought up something for me real quickly, and that is the our law enforcement folks who are doing the enforcement right now on distancing and so on and so forth. I am curious to know and would ask of this committee to find out to make sure that our officers have been engaging in some kind of implicit bias training so that when they're knocking on doors, racism 101 or racism 99, that our people of color or students of color or communities of color are not disproportionately being not only targeted, but feeling like they're being harassed in any kind of way. So I don't know if there's any such thing that has happened with our sheriff's department since they're the ones doing the enforcement now. And I want to put it out there as we're talking about law enforcement right now to think about that. Not too late to back up and do something, given what you started the conversation today with, Annie, of how people are just being killed and hurt, particularly unarmed Black folks. So, and we know that our Asian community members also are being targeted and hurt. So we want to make sure that our officers who are going out there and doing enforcement have been given, the proper tools, and that we feel comfortable that they are working from a place of parity and equity, and a place of anti-racism, for sure. So just putting that out there.
Henry?
Yeah, my wife, who works at Cornell, when she heard that the county sheriff's office was taking over the patrols on the hills on weekends, expressed concern about how people of color would be treated. And I know that I've talked to Derek a little bit. I don't know whether they've done bias training. I know they've done some training. I can follow up with Derek to figure out whether that patrol has done implicit bias training. Though he said that's really literally the easiest patrol out there, because they're not arresting anybody. They're only doing educational stuff. But again, it's something that we should look at to make sure, because we know that the county sheriff's office is not as diverse as IPD, and so we should probably at least check with them to make sure that they're handling things right. Because again, if there's a party off campus, and plus people also with this, the defund the police mentality are saying, why are we using armed sheriffs to police health guidelines, which is one of the concerns that I also had when they decided the sheriff's office would do it. I suggested that Cornell, and Cornell is going to have some off-campus monitors. They're going to get some coaches, other people also monitor things off campus, but they're only going to do it till about 10 o'clock at night. And we know most of the parties start after 10 o'clock at night. And so, we can still bring it up as saying, well, maybe we need more diversity in this process to, in fact, connect better with the people that they're policing or they're managing. But again, I will contact Derek about it just to see what he has to say and make sure that patrol has had implicit bias training at least.
Yeah, implicit bias, microaggressions, all of those. So at minimum, we want to make sure that the folks who are doing the work, have had some education around this, even if it's a refresher.
Leslin, I don't know if you or someone wants to take a step back, and since this topic has come up about the sheriff's department taking those calls. I mean, I could start if you want, or Leslin, would you like to explain about why the sheriffs are taking those calls?
Well, I don't mind explaining at all. I mean, the public health is a county responsibility, period. Public health is county responsibility. Right now, the county is in a state of emergency. We still are in a state of emergency. It has not been lifted. That puts the public health director and the county administrator sort of as decision makers in this. When it comes to enforcing public health or issues around public health, then that becomes a county issue as well. Now, that said, we've had partners who've been working with us on all of it. City of Ithaca, policing agencies, Cornell, IC, all of them. Cornell and IC, because of labor contracts and some other nuances that I don't know all of, are not able to come off campus to provide this service. And it's also one of the reasons why they're not involved or required to answer the governor's executive order about police reform. They're not required, however, they are doing some work. The Ithaca Police Department is taking the stance that this is a public health issue, and so it's a county matter. That aside, Ithaca Police Department is also feeling relatively targeted. And we have a community of people, I'm going to put it out there, we have a number of people who would rather not have armed law enforcement respond to calls around public health. So Ithaca Police, a lot of the protesting and defund police and get rid of police has been towards Ithaca Police. They feel it's, relatively hostile. They've said that, not my words, and feel very strongly that they will not participate in this because they don't want to show up when people are saying we don't want law enforcement showing up. But somebody has to manage and respond to complaints of the community around this. So it comes right back to Tompkins County as the keeper of the gate when it comes to public health. So, somebody who tells the interstate buses that you can't operate or you can't operate out of Ithaca, that comes from the public health department. And as much as the city says to them, yeah, you can stop on Green Street, public health has responsibility in this pandemic overall. So everything points to the county. That's in a nutshell, sort of what's going on. We would much prefer that the Ithaca Police Department participate and be responding. Like we would much prefer that is happening, but they have decided that they are not happening for the very reasons that I have mentioned. We've also heard from the public. I've gotten innumerable emails and phone calls from folks who do not want law enforcement people with, guns attached to them responding. And right now it's what we have in place. And so I say to people, if these folks are on duty and they have to be on duty to be responding, they have to be in uniform, and part of their uniform is that gun belt with everything else attached to it. But we're taking an education approach and not a lethal or law enforcement, so to speak, approach. More about warning people, about explaining to folks the benefits of distancing and wearing masks and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's what's going on and why we are it. We hope to continue the conversation Amy mentioned earlier. We hope to continue the conversation and get folks to get more involved. We've had the conversation around why can't we get like the outreach worker and others. They have no real enforcement authority. And so people really don't have to listen and they don't have to talk to them. If I sign up to be an outreach worker to knock on doors or an ambassador, like Cornell is doing, Cornell students will probably listen to the coaches, but they won't listen to little old me showing up to their door to say, y'all gotta knock it off, shut down the music, shut down this party, too many people here, you're not following the guidelines, so you're not going to listen to me. So it has to have some kind of teeth. Delicate balance, because half of the community says do it, the other half of the community says no, don't do it. We have to err on the side of public health and protection. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Thanks, Leslyn. Henry, I just had one quick comment, then we'll go to Henry. So if what we're telling folks in the community, if they see a gathering that they're concerned about as far as public health, whether it's over 50 people, or if you see people that you believe aren't a family unit, that aren't socially distancing and or wearing masks, you can call the Sheriff's Department at 273-8000. That's 273-8000. And I also spoke with the Chief Nelson of Trumansburg Police Department this morning, and he said that you can call their number if it's in the village of Trumansburg, and also if you Cayuga Heights, and I believe the village of Groton, you can call their departments for a local issue in those areas. And because I know, for instance, the Trumansburg police aren't there all the time. They don't have patrols 24/7. They said that number, you can still call the local numbers, and whatever village or municipality is, it'll get routed if they're not available right to dispatch, and then they'll contact somebody at the Sheriff's Department. So Henry, Amy?
Just a quick one on that. The 273-8000 number is here at dispatch. So if someone calls that, they will route the local departments that respond as well. So you don't have to have all of the numbers available. That's the dispatch number, and they'll dispatch as they should. So it would be like any other incidents where they would dispatch the closest department that's responding to these.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Amy. Henry?
Yes, I was at a meeting today, and the clerk of the city asked about this issue, and she said that she's been getting calls about people not distancing and not wearing masks in parks, like at Stewart Park or whatever. And I know that the Sheriff's Patrol only handles city calls between 7 and 11, Friday and Saturday nights. And so there's a gap. I'll talk to Derek about it, but I don't know what's going to, because again, you naturally call IPD to arrange that. And I don't know that they're going to extend their coverage all over the city. But again, it's just a loophole in the process by not having the city cover it, that, there are people in parks who are not following guidelines either.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, none of it is foolproof, and we just got to keep trying. It wasn't, our expectation that the city wasn't going to participate. Do we hope that they'll turn around so that we have more people doing this rather than less? That's so important.
Right, and so why this was brought up, because this obviously could be a social justice issue, a racial issue. So we want to make sure that, you know, if we hear anything about people being targeted, getting called over and over again, you know, or certain groups being targeted because of their race or their color. So please, you can bring that to this committee. You can bring it to the Human Rights Committee. You can bring it to the Human Rights Office, right, to Dr. Clark, and we could all, you know, figure out the next steps on this.
And if I may add real quickly as well, that Cornell, my understanding, if they haven't already done it, they were developing a dashboard for online complaints. It's already up. Thanks, Henry. For the community to lodge complaints if they see or suspect that they're Cornell students. They want the complaints to have some teeth to them. For example, you can, you know, don't just say, you know, I saw, you know, a group of people wearing Cornell sweatshirts and they, you know, they didn't have on masks. You know, I have a Cornell sweatshirt, but I'm not affiliated with Cornell. You know, every time I speak up there to give me a sweatshirt, you know, I can wear my sweatshirt. So, you know, that doesn't help any. A good example for them is, you know, if you see a party happening at a house, take a picture of the house, especially the address, and put it in on the dashboard, because they have a sense of, okay, those are Cornell students living there. They can cross-reference with their database of where students are, and then they can actually respond. That helps. So they do want people to be using their dashboard, and they will be very active in following up, but it has to be, you know, a little more concrete information than just, you know, a bunch of people wearing a sweatshirt that's a Cornell on it.
Right, and to my knowledge, with the sheriffs or the other police departments showing up at these calls for gatherings with possible health violations, it's an educational process. It's not, they're not issuing tickets, they're not arresting anybody for this, and hopefully it will stay that way. Okay, so any other comments on that? Questions? Clarifications? So before we adjourn, I want to just ask, are there certain topics people have would like to bring up for next month Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting? Leslyn?
I have one thing that I'd like to put on the agenda of this committee, and that is the county's diversity statement. It is overdue for revision. And, you know, it came out of this committee, and I'd really love to see us working on it again. It needed revising from the time it came out, so it's time to address it. I'd love to put that on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
And a follow-up on the microaggressions and implicit bias training for our law enforcement around COVID-19 enforcement measures.
Okay, Henry?
Also, we now have a new mural on the street that I think
All
Leslie
right.
might have something to say about.
Can I talk about it next week? I feel like I've been talking a lot, but I'm all over the place. I'm like in everything, and I'm going to go halfway crazy. But yes, there's a Black Lives Matter mural.
Main Street.
Plain.
It's on
Plains
Plain Street.
between Seneca and Martin Luther King
MLK.
Street.
I can see it from my office.
Yay!
Hmm.
Lovely that
Great.
you came out and painted. Big ups to the staff at GIAC, who pretty much, it wasn't their idea, but we led that painting. I was out there painting, and now my calves hurt. I didn't realize I was doing all that squatting and stuff. So it's out there, take a picture. It's really lovely. And we hope that it does last. We're trying to send our own message. My preference would have been on Cayuga Street, but you know, I didn't get, my vote didn't pass. But that's where it is. And we're really taking this seriously in our community as well.
Yes, if you haven't seen it, it is beautiful. I went down there on Saturday, but I wasn't able to get down there till it was starting to wrap up. People were still doing some small murals, and I was expecting to see one of those big yellow Black Lives Matter mural that people are doing, and I was just so pleasantly surprised. It's really beautiful, really is beautiful. So please take a look down there.
Oh, we did try to paint the street yellow, but we were allowed to do it. We were not permitted. I'll explain that at another time.
Okay, that's for
and some neighbors of Dina and Kate on the other side of the street. It came out and cursed at us. They were not happy about having a Black Lives Matter mural in the street. A lot of F-bombs. And y'all would be proud of me. Because nobody has a black eye or anything like that. You know, I tried to reason with them, but they weren't hearing it. So some education for you, Dr. Clark, and the Human Rights Office.
Education plus.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that's all there was.
Yeah, there were a few of those, you know, people still on the All Lives Matter, and I agree, All Lives Matter. But until Black Lives Matter, you know, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter as well. And right now, Black lives don't seem to matter. So
That's right.
yeah,
And I heard I've heard lots of different ways to try and explain it to people, you know, if they're not getting it. And one of the ones people have probably heard this one, that if you went to a breast cancer rally, you know, somebody wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't go in and go, oh, all cancers matter, you know. You would let them have the breast cancer rally, and you wouldn't just go in there and say that think that they're disparaging other cancers. They're not.
yeah.
Okay, anything else that anybody has an idea of something they'd like to see for next month or following months? All right, well, thank you, everybody. And I'll adjourn, or I guess, do we need, I always forget. Kathy, do we need to do a vote to adjourn, or?
No, you can just adjourn the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for coming today. Hope to see everybody next month. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.